former general manager in the NFL, an advisor, a consultant, a man who has a live talk show, a podcast. He's a TED talker, an author, and an email newsletter founder, creator, and writer. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Lombardi.
Yeah. What's up, guys? How are we? And I'm friends with Frank Luntz, too. I just want you to know he's got a house in Los Angeles in Beverly Hills that the White House office is in his house. He replicated the White House office. And I think Robert Saleh would do a lot of world of good to spend a little bit of time with them. Maybe, as Chuck said, he might want to think about what he says before he goes to that press conference, because he's not been on a streak. I mean, he's been on the anti-DiMaggio streak when he goes talks to the press.
Oh. Yeah, and that's going to happen when you become the head coach. That's a part of the gig. You're going to have to be speaking for the organization, for the program, for your players, for your coaches, and hopefully they're able to settle that. I asked Chuck earlier on the program, and I'm excited to take your thoughts on this because I think I already heard him on the internet. Davante Adams. Okay.
Yeah.
You pick him up out of Las Vegas, which you've been saying has potentially been an issue since the beginning of offseason, whenever everybody else was getting wide receiver contracts. He was looking for a new wide receiver contract because he only has this year left of guaranteed money. And he's seeing a lot of wide receivers that are nowhere near as good as him get paid a lot of money. And he was wondering, well, Bambi. So you said quietly that's been happening behind the scenes for Las Vegas. You told us that. You've said that on your show. This has been taking place. Now it all comes to a head. And everybody's saying he's looking to go to the Jets or the Saints, but more specifically, the Jets, to get back into an offense that he knows with Hackett and a quarterback, obviously, that he's had a lot of success with in Aaron Rodgers, and they have a chance to potentially go and win. I heard your take on this. You don't think that's going to happen or a good move, or the Jets don't automatically come super? Go ahead.
I think that, he's got $13 million coming to him. Now, the Jets have the room because of the Riddick thing, which we won't get into, so they could easily do it. But what happens with the compensation? I mean, the Raiders come out and say they want a second-round pick. Well, who's going to pay the $13 million? Look, I think he would help the Jets. The Jets have a struggle to make big plays down the field, right? Last week in their game against Denver, their front got torn up. Denver's defensive front did a great job against them. But I think Adams would add something to him. I mean, Garrett Wilson hasn't been able to get going in the offense. There hasn't seemed to have been a chemistry with their quarterback and the receivers, and we know, and I'm in the same camp as you are, the quarterback is exceptional. I mean, nobody throws the ball in locations where he does. It's really remarkable, but he needs everybody on the same page, and it's struggling, and I think this would help their team. However, I think it's hard to maneuver. I think the Raiders have to give up a lot, and if you're going to give up a contract, if you're going to not redo his contract, and you're going to bring him into your team, like let's take, for example, the Saints. They could use him. They talked about him going there. Well, next year his cap number is at like $35 million. The Saints are $100 million over the cap. How do they get him under? You can't trade a high pick for a one-year contract, and I think there lies the problem, and I think it's a hard deal to do. This deal should have been done in the offseason when Tom Telesco got in there, because this problem has been brewing since February.
Michael Lombardi's son was the offensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders last year, which is a note that should be mentioned during this entire conversation. Now, Tom Telesco, Antonio Pierce are, in charge of the Raiders. They said in the offseason, though, he was going to be one of the pillars of the Raider way going forward, and Max Crosby was going to be a guy they're going to build around. What do you think happened here in the last 4 weeks? Same contract stuff, or you think it's just contract stuff? And then on that note,
I think Davante's been very clear, and he's been very private about it. I'm not saying anything that he's done is wrong. I mean, he's been very upfront about what he wants, and he didn't show up to the off-season program for a bunch of other reasons. But I think essentially, nothing says I'm sorry better than money. And unless you're willing to reward the contract, I think it's going to be a problem. I've never seen a guy not go to – Max Crosby didn't go to the game on Sunday with a hamstring. That, to me, bothers me. That tells me there's something going on in that locker room. Now, look, Antonio Pierce has taken over. He was the interim coach. When you're the substitute teacher, it's a lot easier to get the students to listen and behave and do all those things. When you become the full-time teacher, all of a sudden you have to change your personality. We've really only seen two coaches go from interim status to full-time status and have a longevity in their NFL careers. Jason Garrett being one, Doug Marrone in Jacksonville being the other. So this is a challenging job, and you change because the position requires you to change. You're a head coach, and the players see that change, and they're like, what happened to the dude that was last year? It's a hard thing, Pat, and I think it's a tough situation to be put in.
So he called Davante 17 in presser earlier this week whenever talking about injuries, and then there's a full cut up with the way he's chatting about Davante. Those two are on the outs, you think? Or are they on the outs because of the business side of it all? Or
I think they're on the outs because of the business. I think, to me, somebody, look, I can't prove this, I don't know, but as Chuck eloquently said before I came on, you can't lie to players, you can't mislead players. And there seems to be a disconnect here, but there seems to be more than one disconnect, because I think Crosby has always been the team guy, but when he doesn't show up to a game, that tells me something without knowing something.
So the Raiders and Crosby have come out and said that the trainers for the Raiders told him to stay home and stay off his feet, and that is why he missed it. Now, granted, I mean, you obviously can take that how you want. That is what they are saying. That is their side of it. And Max Crosby, nothing I know of Max Crosby wouldn't be all in for the Raiders all the time. Just
he was tweeting throughout the game too, positive Raiders.
So he was there,
yeah,
but his feet were rested.
Kicked up.
Nonetheless, the Davante situation is certainly one to keep an eye on, because Max and Davante were going to be the pillars, and then now here we are going into week 5, and it's like Davante's going to be a Jet within the next week or so.
No doubt.
And that $13 million one goes down by $977,000 each week, which is a game check.
Let's not forget the Aaron, when he walked off that golf course at Lake Tahoe, when he gave that subtle little saying that we expect Davante. That goes back to July. I mean, so look, I think this is in the Jets' court. I can't see another team coming in. There's teams with cap room, there's no question. Cleveland has a ton of cap room, but they'll put that cap money into next year, right? They need that money for next year. They're so far over the cap. Same thing with the Cowboys. Much the same thing with the Saints. I mean, they're $100 million over. The Jets are sitting there perfectly because they have the room. Now, you've got to get the Raiders to figure out, okay, we've had enough of this. We're going to get rid of them. We're going to trade them. You take them, and we won't take a lot of compensation. That's a hard thing to do, especially when they have to eat a lot of acceleration on his contract.
Hey, Lombo, those next 2 years, 2025, 2026, non-guaranteed there, what does that mean? Can they renegotiate a one-year contract and those just be getting knocked out?
They could go in. Like the Jets could come in and take them over, and they take in the salary. They could say, "Look, we'll guarantee X amount for next year. We'll guarantee X amount in the next year for skill or for injury." However, they want to do that. They certainly could do that, and they have the cap room. See, here's the key: you have to have the cap room to make the trade. The Raiders aren't going to renegotiate the contract to then make the trade for you.
Lombo, hold on. Lombo, hold on 1 second. Hold on. Lombo, hold on. So if, let's say, Tay goes to the Jets, gets traded to the Jets. Let's say they give up a third for him. It ends up being a third. And they're saying it's going to be a good third, or it's depending upon how it is, maybe you get it, a third instead of a second. Can they renegotiate this deal that has 3 years left, including this year, with non-guaranteed money? They can renegotiate it and just make it a one-year deal with no money owed over the next 2 years, so he becomes a free agent at the end of this year. What's the dead cap for that? Is there a dead cap situation for that, or who ends up having?
There's no dead cap for the Jets. This is an easy deal to do for the Jets. There's no dead cap. All the dead cap will be incurred by the Raiders, who did this contract originally. So they would incur the debt. Now they could do it of July 1 of next year, or they have to eat it all in this year. We'll see how they handle that. But to me, that's where I think that's $40 million. They have like $40 million of acceleration if they take it on now, which they don't have the room to do that.
So if the Jets trade for him, and let's say they renegotiate somebody's contract to open up more money this year. Let's say they tear up the current contract. Okay, then they make it $20 million guaranteed for this year. For the rest of the year, that would have been like 5 weeks, obviously removed from the $20 million salary. Fully guaranteed, and then he's a free agent after this year. You're saying the Raiders would still incur dead cap hits because of the deal that they negotiated, but the Jets, Davante, free after this year from each other.
They would then the whatever the new contract the Jets did, whatever acceleration they pushed in the future years would stay with them. But they have to take Davante's contract as it is right now for a day. Then they can renegotiate. They put it on their cap for a day. Then they can renegotiate it. What the Jets certainly could do that.
What if they tear it up, though, completely, and it's only a one-year deal? What if it is just the rest of this year?
Then they, as long as they have the cap room, they can tear it up completely. But they have to have his Raider contract that they make the trade on his cap for the one day that they trade him for.
Got it.
So they trade him. So what you do is you tell the Davante's agent, look, once you get here, here's the deal we're going to do. He signs. We go 24 hours. Here's the new contract. We'll turn that deal in.
Would Tay want 1 year deal? Because you don't. Aaron said he's going to play multiple years. I think at a couple different times. But like for Tay, if it is like a 1 year rental, then he's saying, well, what team will give up a high pick for a 1 year rental? It's like maybe a team that thinks they're all fired if they don't have a good year. So maybe it like.
Well, maybe he does a 2 year deal too. If he thinks Rodgers going to play 2 years, it's like, all right, I'll do this year and next year.
How much you going to give Lombo to the 32? He's going to be 32, right?
He's 31.
Right.
They're all trying to age him. He's 31 years old. Jeez Louise.
Right now he's 31?
Yeah.
He'll be
So
32
you're
next
talking,
year.
you're going to be 32 next year, and
That's not 42.
God forbid. I mean, I hope so. You know what I mean? We never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, I think that's the sticking
Getting wrong
point.
algorithm. I don't know if we're going to be around next year. Jeez Louise.
and who knows what they
Who's
promised
paying the
Reddit.
$13 million?
What's that?
I think that's the question is, will the Raiders pay some of the salary? I think that's going to be some of the issue. If the pick's higher, if the Jets give up a third-round pick for him, I think the Raiders would probably pay some of the salary. They would have to. That doesn't count as paying for a draft pick, but I think they would have to do something. I mean, look, it's hard to trade players in season, especially knowing that, you may not be able to have them. You can't rent a player and give up a really good, valuable resource like a second-round pick for a one-year rental.
Yeah, but to your point, too, they could put like in the incentives where it's like if he plays 80% of snaps, it could become a higher pick.
A second round. It's a third rounder. It could become a second rounder, especially if we win, yada, 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 because we don't care. We go all in.
Yeah.
Fascinating situation development. Then the Saints obviously are in it because Derek Carr's down there. And it's like the Raiders are just taking the best offer, right? They don't give a shit.
Now, he has a no-trade clause, so they can take the best offer, but no team's going to take him. They're going to be the anti-Jets here. They're not going to take him without knowing what the kid wants before he comes in. This is not going to be like Hassan Riddick, where you take the guy, we didn't know he wanted a new contract. Well, you did know. You just didn't get it done. But I think that's going to be the key, right? I mean, you got to be able to know. You don't want him coming in. You don't want to take the Raiders' problem and make it your problem, like what the Jets ended up doing with Riddick.
Okay, Connor has a question for you away from that subject.
Yeah, Lombo, how do you feel about what's going on in Washington? The Commanders are absolutely rolling, and Jayden Daniels, I believe, set a record for completion percentage through 4 starts in the history of the NFL. And even with the Davante stuff, the Commanders are one of those teams on the list with the cap space. Do you think he would be a piece that they would add, and then they would actually be legitimate Super Bowl contenders in Jayden Daniels' first year?
No, I think that, look, I marvel at what Jayden Daniels, his accuracy, throwing 19 incomplete passes all season in 4 games. I mean, he's doing things. People are comparing him to what Peyton Manning did in his MVP season. This isn't Peyton Manning as a rookie. This is remarkable. I mean, this kid has been unbelievable, and he's hiding all the deficiencies within the Washington football team. I mean, their offensive line is playing at a better level, and their defense, which we know statistically hasn't played well, but they've rallied. I think Dan Quinn's done a great job, and so has Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, Cliff's done a remarkable job of making this kid run an offense that fits him perfectly. You want to call it a college offense, that's fine, but it's an effective offense. Whatever it is, the receivers catch the ball. I think if you know Adam Peters and you know how much he respects and wants the draft, I think he wants to collect draft picks, not give draft picks away. So I think they will play with the roster. Look, they need more talent on defense to help this kid, but this kid's amazing. I mean, he's been unbelievable. From the first day, the first throw in the preseason game against the Jets on the deep ball on 3rd and 10, he's been like outstandingly accurate, and his reading and his understanding of the defense is really good. And I don't expect it to stop. I mean, he's not going to play at this level every week, but man, is he good. And I tell you what, he makes it very challenging to defend because his ability to move in the pocket, you got to be really careful. You can say you're going to spy him, but who's spying him? They better be fast.
Yeah, and also to your point about since the first throw of preseason he's been there, it feels like the team loves him too. And it's because of reasons like 3rd and 7, 4th quarter, less than 2 minutes left, knowing that somebody is going to spear you in the face and still throwing a dime to Terry McLaurin. It's like Cliff Kingsbury's showing that to the entire offense. Dan Quinn's probably showing that to the entire team. Look at this young guy right here. Look at our quarterback. Look what he's willing to do for us to win. We haven't had that in a long time. Let's go ahead and get excited about everything. And then Cliff Kingsbury, before that game, 2 weeks ago, whenever the Cincinnati said it was a basic college offense, him walking around everybody talking shit before the game. And then last week against Arizona, it's like that team, backwards hat Dan Quinn, Jayden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury. Wait a minute. Awesome. The Washington Commanders. Now, The NFL was a little bit against him. I don't know if you saw McNichols.
Oh, yeah.
He scores a touchdown.
Son of a bitch.
And he does the bow and arrow.
Disgusting.
And they call a personal foul celebration penalty against McNichols. The NFL is trying to slow down the Commanders. They're trying to say, this team's too happy all of a sudden. They throw a flag on that. So, once again, obviously, reached out and asked, and they said they don't want to do the weaponry. Now, there has been an adjustment. Bow and arrows, slingshots, I think are going to be okay.
Okay.
Really?
That's what our source says have been telling us. So firearms, I believe, guns are going to be problematic no matter how you do it, even if it's a finger gun or a double barrel gun. And if you even do a finger like this, they'll just say, well, that's one of those low profile cricket guns. So I think anything potential gun-like is going to get a penalty, but you get bow and arrow. Swords, I think, are okay.
Crossbow?
Crossbow's gun, I think.
Are these good? You know how
sword,
yeah. Sheath in it.
I think sword's okay.
Yeah.
We still don't know about
I love
muskets.
the sheath.
Yeah, throw
Well,
it in
forget the weaponry. Forget the weaponry. I mean, the fact that the Washington Commanders lead the league in the least amount of punts per play, if you would have said that to me back in August, I would have said there's no way, right? I mean, one of the ways you measure how well you're doing offensively and not going for it on fourth down is how many punts per game are you utilizing it? And this team is at a record number. I mean, the Chargers are at 0.11. That's the worst in the league, whereas the Commanders are at 0.02. I mean, they are by far. They're better than San Francisco. They're better than New Orleans. They're much better than Kansas City. Got to give this kid a ton of credit.
Yeah, Tress Way is one of the best punters in the league, has been for a long time. 1 per game they're averaging. 4 punts this entire season. That's phenomenal stuff. And then there's a percentage of completions for Jayden Daniels over 85%. If he goes for 3, that'll be a record. J.J. Watt said that. I think Jared Goff is potentially in the same vein of completion percentages and everything like that. So there's a couple high-performing quarterbacks, and then there's a bunch that we don't know. Is it all kind of settling in? And what Jayden Daniels doing this year, is it similar to what Pete Rose did in 1968, the year of the pitcher?
Good question.
When all the pitchers were phenomenal. And the average, batting average was like .251 or .230. 230 or something like that. And Pete Rose batted .330.
Yeah,
something
MVP
like that.
only batted.
Yeah,
It wasn't the mound. I think the mound was higher that year. That's when they lowered the mound the next year. You remember? I think the mound was up a little bit higher, and that's why they were so effective. But Rose was.
This has been a year of defenses and a year of offenses not being amazing. And here's Jayden Daniels just having a historic positive. It's like similar to that.
Unbelievable.
Let's go to a couple quarterback situations kind of brewing. Chuck's got a question for you, Paisan.
Hey, so Lombo, Colts travel to Jacksonville where they haven't won since 2014. Big win for the Colts last week over the Steelers. We talked about it before. What'd you see, in that game? AR's a little bit beat up. He's got an oblique or something going on. He went out of that game. Joe Flacco comes in and obviously does a great job towards the end of that game, converting third down, staying on the field. They pulled that one out. Really did an unbelievable job offensive line-wise versus that defense and that front.
Yep.
TJ Watt, barely on the. I mean, you didn't even hear his name,
Well,
called.
held him on every play,
That never happens. I don't want to piss the guys off here.
Well, they held him on every play,
in the Thunderdome. But what do you think? Do they have a chance? And I know Jacksonville's got a lot going on. They're 0-4 right now, but they've got talent on that team. How do you see that game going?
Well, I mean, look, the Jacksonville lost 3 games in the fourth quarter. They're the worst fourth quarter team in all of football. They've only scored 3 points in the fourth quarter. They're 1 for 9 overall in the fourth quarter in the games they had a chance to win. They're 1 for 3 in the fourth quarter. They can't get things done. Last week, they have the ball back from Houston with 3:50 to go in the game and can clinch the game and put the game away. They run the ball on first down, then they throw 2 incomplete passes. If they run it both times there, maybe they eat up enough time where they win the game. But, Houston comes right down. I was impressed with Richardson from the first throw last week, where he just threw a bullet right to Michael Pittman, and it was unbelievable. I mean, to me, he's got to play more, but I think Flacco really gives him some continuity and stability, and you could see how good of a play caller Shane Steichen is and a play designer Shane Steichen is. To me, this game's going to come down in Jacksonville will Jacksonville run the football? ATN and Bigsby are really good runners. They can run it. But Peterson gets tired. If you stop one run, he'll start calling passes. And the next thing you know, and everybody in the league knows it. And so, but they've got to run the ball in Jacksonville. They can't be a team that throws it all the time. And I know they want to do that. They paid all this money to receivers, whether it's Kirk or Thomas and Gabe Davis. But and they get Ingram back this week. But to me, this is the season for Jacksonville. Last week, Peterson blamed the players, said, hey, they're accountable too, which they are, but you never do it publicly, right? You never do it. You got to make plays. But this game will come down to the fourth quarter, and if it does, I don't know how you like Jacksonville. They haven't made a play in the fourth quarter so far all year.
I appreciate everything that was said. I had to run to the bathroom right there. There was almost a little bit of trouble. T.J. Watt was not on the stat sheet. Chuck was right there. There's a lot of conversation there.
He wasn't on it for a reason.
Well, yeah, they hugged him. They wanted to show him love. Welcome to Indianapolis, the city of hospitality. Too. Okay, we are going to give you a hug, and that's how it goes. Shane Steichen, though, great coach. I think he's a phenomenal coach. Joe Flacco goes in there. Offense, we're A-okay. Because now, Anthony Richardson, you said you thought he played well early. I mean, beautiful ball. He's had a couple of those. There's a bunch of stats coming out that he averages like the furthest pass attempt, but he also has the lowest completion percentage as well. So there's a lot of that type of stuff going on. He doesn't play a lot of ball. He hasn't played a lot of ball.
To me, Richardson's like the amateur golfer, right? He goes to the course and he plays 18 holes and he has one great hole and he can't wait to play again. And then he has so many bad holes you lose sight of it.
That's a good analogy.
It's really good.
That's what it is. I love the kid. The kid's athletic. I'm not being negative, Pat. I'm being positive with you. But
no, I'm that golfer you're talking about, and I suck at golf so bad that I actually stopped playing. Yep. I said, I'm not doing this anymore.
I can't believe you stink at golf, but that's just you don't. But to me, there's always a shot that brings that golfer back, right? And to me, Richardson, when he makes that throw to Pittman, you're like, okay, he's back. He's got it. And then he has 10 throws where you're like, what's going on? I think Shane Steichen could be one of the best coaches in the league if he ever gets game management in it. I mean, he gave Pittsburgh the door to open up. He throws the ball twice in the fourth quarter. Pittsburgh's got a chance to come back. They had the bad snap, which cost them. But I think he's got the potential to be a really outstanding head coach if he becomes a head coach. Right now, he's a really good offensive coordinator. He's got to morph it into that head coaching office and really take over. This is going to be a challenge for their defense because they've played better defense the last 2 weeks, but they're going to have to play their best defense this week to win down there. And remember, heat and humidity are a problem down there.
Yeah, the Colts have not won in Jacksonville since 2014.
Oh,
so it's been problematic. That's a tough barn down there for the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, that's just it has been.
Trevor Bank,
and I hope Trevor Bank is a problem for the Indianapolis Colts. Nobody else seemingly, but the Indianapolis Colts have battled. It will be a great AFC South matchup. And you're talking about that snap foo that happened with Justin Fields in the fourth quarter. We'll take it, and that's because the Loud House was so damn intimidating. Yeah. I hope this Colts team's a real deal. I hope Anthony Richardson's a real deal. I don't like his answer yesterday that he gave, saying the people that are talking about him getting hurt, if they were to come in and get hit by people going 20 miles an hour, they'd be hurt too.
Probably.
It's like my mom would get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all wondering. Why is this guy every game he plays in seemingly not finish the game? Like,
I mean, if he were to come out and drink 20 beers and smoke a pack of cigarettes, he'd probably get hurt too.
Bingo. Tim poured some concrete yesterday, so he might not be able to take a hit. Boom. You pouring concrete? I don't know if you got the ability.
We're all good at some things. I'm not running into defenders.
No, I am an Anthony Richardson fan. I think there is so much upside that is awesome. But like when that play happens, we in the stadium think, okay, he's done. He's got to be done for. And then all of a sudden he comes back and he's good. And then it's like now he's day to day. And it's like last year there was a certain times where we thought he was done and then he was good. And then it's like there's a lot of these moments that are happening over the last 2 years. But I'll say when he's playing, he's electrifying.
So good.
He is so good. Joey Flacco knows what everybody's doing at all times.
He does.
That's what Joey Flacco
No matter
does.
what.
Joey Flacco football.
We got a team. In our defense, you talk about our defense, we have like 3 of the top 5 tacklers in the NFL flying around at this point playing great. Zaire, EJ Speed. EJ Speed's about to break an NFL record. I mean, we got the team. DeForest Buckner being out's not good. We need to get past Jacksonville. Okay, as we come upon a hard out here, I think you've been hot giving us picks as of like the Italians have been doing great on this particular program, giving picks. Chuck's 4-0 against the spread on Thursday night. What are some picks we should be looking at this weekend in your eyes?
You know, I think the Bengals, I think it's an interesting game. I know it's got to be quick. The Bengals can throw it. I'm not sure the Ravens can defend the throw very well. I think Burrow with having T. Higgins back and the way Chase is playing, getting 2.5 at home, I think is a really good play. It'll come down to the fourth quarter in this game. I think there's no doubt. Look, I think Denver's defense is going to give the Raiders all sorts of trouble. Denver's defense was good. I worry about Bo Nix consistently on offense, but man, this Denver defense is unknown. They're healthy and they get after the quarterback. You can ask Aaron; he'll tell you that.
Okay, so Bengals in Denver. We appreciate the hell out of you, brother. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one. I love the Ram truck too, Pat, by the way. Love it. Looks good on you.
Hey, thank you. It does. It's a good-looking truck. It's